How you doing? This is the thing of social setting. And today I want to talk about a topic. Question is, how do we sustain black businesses? And I was thinking about, I was watching the King Ghana show, which is an amazing show by O'Shea Duke Jackson, and he one of the things he said was, "Who's going to run? Not like who's going to run, but when I'm gone, you guys can take this over and run the King Ghana show." And I saw a clip about a guy named Oscar Micheaux who started his own film production company in the early like 1900s, and there was a big, bigger, blacker film production in Chicago. He wrote and filmed his own movie called The Homesteader, and allegedly this is who the Oscars are named after. So watching the King Ghana show, and O'Shea mentioned that question, and reading up on Oscar Micheaux starting his own film production. Then I also saw something about, I saw Tyler Perry, and there's a big kind of conversation. They saying that Tyler Perry is the first African American to own his own film studio. And a lot of people saying, no, well, no, that's right. There was another actor who owned a film studio in Virginia. I can't think of his name right now, but I seen him in a couple movies. And then reading up on Oscar Micheaux, stated that there was black film productions in the early 1900s. So it's not the fact that black people can't run or start businesses. It's the fact that how do we sustain them? And I think it's interesting because a lot of times in the black community, we want to leave our businesses to family, or we want to leave our businesses to our children. And a lot of times our children or our family don't necessarily want to run that business, or they don't want to be a part of that business. And that's another example with like athletes like Michael Jordan, or Shaquille O'Neal. Their kids, they play sports, or like Snoop Dogg. Like a lot of times our kids don't want to be rappers. A lot of times our kids don't want to be athletes. You know what I'm saying? They want to chase their own dreams. And a lot of times I watch Kevin Samuels, and a lot of the women say, I want to create a business to create generational wealth for my children. And the generational wealth necessarily isn't the business, because your children may not want to run that business, but the generational wealth is for them to be able to use that money and create their own business, or make it easier. That money that creator, or that stock, or that percentage that you own in the business, even though they don't want to run it, should make it easier for your children or grandchildren to start their own businesses, or use that money to start their own careers and chase their own dreams. And a lot of times I think in the black community, I think we kind of get stuck in this like nepotism idea that our children is going to run this business, or our family is going to run this business. And what O'Shea talked about, like who's going to, like, you guys are going to run this, is, similar to like I see like with a lot of bigger companies, bigger white or other companies, where like they have a board. And a lot of times the board can vote. They can vote the owner of the company off the board, and the person, I believe, may still own the company or have a percentage in the company, but they don't make the day-to-day ideas of the company. So how do we sustain black businesses? By putting the right people in power to want to run and keep these businesses. Because I read about so many African Americans starting these very amazing businesses in the early 1900s, in the late 1800s, where they would, their parents or grandparents were just coming out of slavery, and right before Jim Crow kind of started up, and they dealt with all this racism and things like that, and they create these amazing businesses, but it kind of get lost in the shuffle, or lost in the fold, and they kind of dissipate or disappear. And we're steady making these posts about how the blacks in these last 50 or 100 years are the first black to do this, first black to do that, when they were not. You know what I'm saying? So kind of rambling, but just reading up on a lot of things and watching a lot of shows. Like, I think a lot of black businesses, we need to put a board in place. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that they don't, to put the right people to run that business after you're gone. And a lot of times, like, you buy a house and you think your kids are going to want to keep that house because you want to make it easy for them to make money off the land or build a farm. A lot of times your kids may not want to be in that same state or country. Like I own a house. I just bought a house for the last 2 years, but my children, if I have children, may not want to be in this house. They might not want to stay here, but they can sell this house and use that money to travel or do whatever they want to do to chase that dream. But a lot of times in the black community, um, we say, well, don't sell grandma's house, and you wrong. Your grandma, your grandfather worked so hard to build this house and this and that. But a lot of times, the new generation don't have the same dreams and aspirations to do what the old generation did, or things are just different. And like now, like my mom and my dad, they traveled to the Bahamas, you know what I'm saying, on their wedding anniversary. And we traveled different places across the state. And like my dad traveled because he's, in the Marines or whatever, but I'm able to travel and do a lot more and things are a lot easier, you know what I'm saying? And I'm able to get into more things than they ever would be, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of times I may not want to do the same thing they wanted to do. I may not want to join the Army and join the Marines and stuff like that. And I just think, it's just something that, like I said, I know I'm rambling, but just something that was just on my mind. Like, how do we sustain black businesses? How do we create a board? And how do we put the right person, that next hungry person who wants to do this same business and maintain this business? How do we continue to maintain these black companies and these black businesses for 50, 100, 200 years? Like I said, Uber, the owner of Uber got voted off the board. The owner of Papa John's got voted off the board. And I just saw a commercial with Anheuser-Busch when he said that his ancestors will roll over in their grave because I believe they put an LGBTQ person in the commercial, or a trans person in the commercial, I believe. And so with that being, maybe he doesn't, they own the company still, but he's not across the board. He's not making the day-to-day decisions. And so, like I said, instead of putting our kids or grandkids or stuff like that in the position to run the company, you know what I'm saying? How do we put the right person or the right people to sustain that black business and to continue on those dreams? Because like Swopes Athletic Recruiting is my business, and I love recruiting. I love sports, you know what I'm saying? But my kids may not want to do anything with recruitment. So for me to force them to say, you need to do this company, it wouldn't be right. Now, I'm not saying that all kids, but some kids will want to run that business. That's probably why the good thing, like a lot of people had so many kids back in the day. A lot of kids will want to run that business. You know what I'm saying? They want to set this up, do this and that, and with that content. But a lot of our next generation, like I said, my kids may not want to even be in the state of Illinois. They may want to, move to California or move to a whole nother country and do things like that. So, but the main thing I think when we say we want to create this business for generational wealth is allowing the money that you made or possibly that they can make off off the company to make it easier for them to sustain their life. Like this house, if I'm able to keep this house and pay off this loan, I want it to where my kids can sell it, and they can use that money to chase their dream, not necessarily be burdened with keeping this house. They may not want to keep this house. They might not want to be here again. So I just thought that was an interesting thing, and I'm grateful to see a great show like King Godwin that O'Shea has that thought on his mind, like leaving the business to the community or his board to run that company to make it even bigger or take it to greater horizons, because his son may not want to run, his uncle, nephew, stuff like that. Somebody in the family may not want to run King Godwin, and they may not have the same passion of Pan-Africanism as he do. And like I said, just reading about Oscar Mache and reading the stories about Tyler Perry and his film studio, it's just something that that I thought about, and I thought it would be a great conversation. How do we sustain black businesses for the next generation, especially when our kids or grandkids don't want to run that business or don't want to be a part of that business anymore? They don't have the same aspirations. How do we, rightfully so, bring in that next hungry person or hungry people around our board? 'Cause a lot of times we just, we kind of shun people away. And, and how do we bring those right people in that want to do that same business and do the exact same things as you want to do? So again, this is Nathaniel Sosa signing out. Again, how do we sustain black businesses for the next generation? And you all have a good one.